All right, and let's now have a look at what's been making headlines in the papers this morning. And we begin with the Daily Nation, and this is what is captured on the Daily Nation, which of course will be our focus today as well. The moment of truth, it says, and it's decision time as vote likely to drag on late into the night or extend to tomorrow's sittings. Like I said earlier, it's going to be a numbers game. A fresh showdown looming today in the National Assembly between President William Ruto's Kenya Kwanza Alliance and opposition chief Raila Odinga's Azimio la Umoja coalition of the controversial Finance Bill 2023 that is coming up for the third reading, where MPs will vote close by close, even as the minority side accused Speaker Moses Wetang'ula of tricking their members last week. A full splash on page 6 and 7. We're going to get to that in a moment. And you can see the two gentlemen there who are at the center of this, Wetang'ula and Kingi, have been accused. Well, the minority leadership in Parliament is terming the two speakers quote-unquote unpopular for the decisions they have made, which they say outrightly favor the Kenya Kwanza administration, and argue that the duo cannot be compared to the predecessors. But if you can remember last week, 176, that's the number of Kenya Kwanza members of Parliament who voted yes to pass the finance bill during the second reading last week. Also captured on the front page is a story that we continue to follow up as it continues to develop, following an expose that was done here at NTV as well as the Nation Media, Nation newspaper. NHIF heist. Health CS now sends officials home amid probe. That's the Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakhumicha, who suspended some NHIF branch managers a day after that expose of how rogue hospitals stole millions of shillings through suspect medical camps targeting elderly patients. We're going to get to that as well. And let's see what else we have here. In terms of the transport sector, it's a shock as matatu drivers fail NTSA refresher test. Apparently, only 18% of those who've been assessed have passed the written and applied theory test. Also in politics, we have Ruto Gachagua plot to fix Wamushomba. Is it? Unhappy with the lawmakers' criticism of agenda. The UDA chiefs appear to be propping up a rival in former Githunguri MP Kago wa Lydia. All right, so let's see what else we have here. Okay, and we're going to get to this, the issue of the edible oils scandal that has now put the Nation Media Group in the middle of a storm. Well, media players are calling up Kuria for attack on Nation Media Group. We're going to get to that as well. Let's see what we have inside the paper as well. 9 lawyers have been struck off the roll of advocates for malpractice, while the Judiciary Chief Registrar Anna Madi has officially ratified the recommendations of the Advocates Disciplinary Tribunal, striking off 9 lawyers from the role of advocates. Now, Amadi published the names of the affected lawyers in a Gazette notice, which also includes names of 5 suspended from legal practice. All right, and you can get all the names there of those affected advocates and why that actually happened. Okay, let's see what else we have today in the Daily Nation. Majority of PSV drivers fail license renewal test, as was captured on the front page. Drivers being tested following a revision of rules and directive by the Transport Cabinet Secretary. It's a mandatory ongoing test for public service vehicle drivers seeking to renew their licenses, which reveals a worrying statistics about the fitness of a majority of them. It's only because 18% of those tested by NTSA between the 9th of June and Friday last week passed the written and applied theory tests being conducted at the authority's Vehicle Inspection Center along Likoni Road in Nairobi. Well, according to NTSA and the head of safety compliance, driver training and testing, Mr. Wilson, he says out of the 302 drivers tested so far, only 54 have passed. Can you imagine that? Out of 302 drivers, only 54 have passed that particular test. And they're all PSV drivers, by the way. So what will happen? We'll get to see and hear from NTSA on the same as well. Okay, and this is what awaits Thuge as he takes over as CBK governor. The new central bank chief who took office yesterday has a full in-tray, weak shilling, low forex reserves and inflation. Economist Dr. Kamau Thuge officially took over as governor of the Central Bank of Kenya yesterday, becoming the 10th person to hold that position. Thuge has been serving as senior economic advisor to President William Ruto, takes over from Dr. Patrick Njoroge, who has completed 2 eventful terms of 4 years each at the helm of the CBK. Now, this new governor was nominated by President Ruto from a pool of 6 shortlisted candidates by the Public Service Commission, paving the way for his ascension to office and a number of things that awaits his tenure there at the Central Bank of Kenya. Hard times indeed. It talks about the rising costs pushing up the rate of inflation. Kenya's inflation rate hitting 8% in May amid rising cost of food, fuel, electricity and other utilities. Thuge will be forced to make tough decisions on how to balance the monetary levers available to the CBK to ease inflation. He's proved to be a stickler for the law, they say, during his tenure, notably failing to relax the threshold for reporting large cash transactions. That's Dr. Patrick Njoroge, that is. And it remains to be seen whether Thuge will follow Njoroge's footsteps or succumb to pressure from the executive to relax the strict rules. So you can get that full report on the 4th page of the Daily Nation. And just adjacent to that report, it's all about politics. That showdown between Kanini and Sabina Jubilee faction, which have been barred from pulling out of Raila's Azimio. Well, the Jubilee Party rebel faction led by Sabina and Kanini Kega has been barred from withdrawing from the party, that is Azimio. In a ruling by the Political Parties Disputes Tribunal, well, the Shege Kanini Kega faction has also been stopped from holding a special annual delegates conference they had prepared for. The tribunal chairperson Desma Nungo suspended the ADC, which was scheduled for the 22nd of July. So that's a push and pull that continues to happen over the leadership at the Jubilee Party. And we will wait to see exactly what happens at the very end, who really is taking over as the Jubilee Party leaders. All right, so let's see what else we have. Ruto allies change tack in Nyanza listing. Well, the Kenya Kwanza Alliance's relentless efforts to recruit in Nyanza are adding to the ODM party's headache as it grapples with rebellious members, some of whom have decided to work with the government. UDA party officials and members have been making forays into ODM leader Raila Odinga's backyard, seeking to recruit members in the immediate aftermath of the elections. UDA leaders from Nyanza region were attacking Odinga on every platform they could get, but recently there seems to be a change in tack that seems to be working. Well, you have former Kisumu Senator Fred Ota, who was appointed Chief Administrative Secretary for Administration, who says, and I quote, "We're registering as many people as possible in UDA and we're engaging them on an economic empowerment platform. We're not going to fight them, but use the element of persuasion so that our people can change their mindset and embrace the government." So you can see a number of people there who are very strong supporters of the Azimio leader Raila Odinga, but now sort of changed tack and now changed into having them favoring the Kenya Kwanza administration and President William Ruto, and of course some of them being given positions within the government as well. All right, so that is what is happening in terms of the politics there in Nyanza region. All right, Wetang'ula Kingi dalliance with executive. Well, 9 months since assuming office, Speakers Moses Wetang'ula and Amason Kingi of the National Assembly and Senate are raising eyebrows regarding decisions they have made so far. The minority leadership in Parliament has been categorical that the 2 speakers have made, and I quote, unpopular decisions that blatantly favor the Kenya Kwanza administration and cannot hold a candle to their predecessors. Apparently, Wetang'ula and Kingi were elected on September 8th by their respective houses following the conclusion of the general election. Now, the latest of the decisions happened on Wednesday last week when Wetang'ula told members that debate on finance bill would conclude today. The speaker, however, changed his mind to allow debate to conclude on that same day. Now, at the conclusion of the debate on the bill, members are expected to vote to determine whether it goes for the next stage or it ends there. Now, it's not clear whether Wetang'ula had intended to trick Azimio la Umoja, who had openly promised to vote against the bill by changing his mind to allow the voting at that time when a good number of them were not in the chamber. But the Speaker's move saw the Azimio MPs led by their minority leader Opiyo Wandayi walk out on National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndung'u as he was presenting the budget estimates in the House on Thursday. And there has been that push and pull on really how the two leaders have been leading the House, especially in terms of what they're calling a dalliance with the executive. And of course, the Finance Bill 2023 really being at the very center of the political turmoil that we're seeing in Parliament at this point, all right? In Senate, you have Kingi. Apparently in that controversy, the nation says in the Senate, Kingi had frustrated Azimio's quest to have Isiolo Senator Fatuma Dulo replaced as minority. Then you also have the issue of Sabina Chege. So there has been quite a bit of a push and pull there in Parliament. So we'll see what happens today as well, okay? And let's see what else. Crunch battle for Ruto and Raila in Finance Bill vote. Indeed, it's going to be a fresh showdown today afternoon between allies of President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga in the National Assembly of the Finance Bill 2023 that is coming up for the committee stage, where the real legislation actually happens. It's going to be the moment that provides a chance for MPs allied to opposition outfit Azimio la Umoja, who were not in the House on Wednesday last week when the bill sailed through the second reading, to redeem themselves after they were accused of abandoning the party. The bill seeks to raise additional revenue in taxes in the region of about 130 billion to finance the Kenya Kwanza administration's 3.6 trillion budget for the 2023-2024 financial year. And you have Odinga, who's been consistent that the bill contains punitive taxation proposals that are detrimental to an already overburdened taxpayer. So what will happen? Will the Azimio team turn up? How are they going to vote? We do understand that the vote is going to be close by close. And are they going to be voting in totality, in rejection, or are they going to actually just look at each clause in terms of its merits and demerits as well? Also, let's see. Bill aims to put police, prisons, KWS officers under IPOA radar. A new bill seeks to extend the civilian oversight functions of the Independent Policing Oversight Authority to include crimes allegedly committed by members of the Kenya Wildlife Service, the Kenya Forestry Service, and also the Kenya Prison Service to prevent police officers from investigating crimes allegedly committed by their colleagues. It seeks to give IPOA primary responsibility for investigating crimes allegedly committed by those police officers. Now, if passed, the Security Services Laws Amendment Act will place the Prisons and Wildlife Service under the supervision of IPOA and strip the Internal Affairs Unit of its power to investigate crimes committed by the police officers. That's a report you can probably read later on the 8th page of the Daily Nation and what it entails. Let me just wind up now. And very big story here. NHIF officials suspended probe into scam ordered. I think we captured that on the front page, where the Health Cabinet Secretary ordered the closure of implicated health facilities pending investigations. It was an expose, really, of how the elderly were defrauded the nation yesterday, revealing that money was being siphoned from the National Health Insurance Fund through false claims. Hospitals would organize medical camps where only those with NHIF cards would be attended to. The patients would later receive messages showing large NHIF payments made on their behalf after receiving little to no medical care from the health facilities. And finally here, finally, all right, edible oil expose versus media players. Now, the Media Owners Association of Kenya has condemned Investment and Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria for comments he made following an expose by the Nation Media Group of a cooking oil scandal. Speaking at their Corino annual convention in Embu on Sunday, Kuria threatened to sack any government official who advertises with the group. He then went on to insult journalists from the media house on his Twitter handle, and he says, and I quote, "Nation Media," and this is what he did say, "Nation Media, you must now decide whether you're a newspaper, a broadcaster, a media house, or a political party. I've said from tomorrow, even from today, any government department that is found advertising in the Nation Media Group, consider yourself out of government." He said that In a statement, however, Media Owners Association chairperson Agnes Kaleche said the threat to withdraw government advertising from the media house was tantamount to blackmail and aimed at undermining its coverage of government affairs. And that's not the only statement. There are a number of statements that were released yesterday in terms of that, including the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission as well. Through an advisory to public institutions and public officials, the EACC sought to neutralize Korea's threat on the denial of advertisement. It said in its statement, and I quote, "The attention of the EACC has been drawn to the statements reported in sections of the media threatening and warning public institutions against awarding tenders to certain organizations. The Constitution requires that public procurement be carried out in a system that is fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective." And many other statements that came from there, including a statement from the Nation Media Group's head of external affairs, Clifford Mashoka, who recalled Korea's previous attacks on the media, including his discouraging the public from buying newspapers at the height of the COVID-19 and using an expletive against a media house journalist on live television when he was then Gatundu South Member of Parliament. And it quotes, let me quote a part of that statement from our head of external affairs. "The verbal attack using foul and crude language against NMG is shocking, primitive, and inexcusable in the eyes of level-headed Kenyans who expect cabinet secretaries to conduct themselves with decorum befitting their high offices. It constitutes a serious violation of Chapter 4 Bill of Rights, particularly the freedom of the press, and we note that the attacks on media have been sustained since the Kenya Kwanza government took office." But as we saw that the cabinet secretary did indeed continue with his outrage on social media, on his Twitter handle, we will not be getting to that. However, this is something that we'll be keeping a very close eye on to see really what is going to be happening next, all right? And you have all those people who have now called out Korea over his attack on not just Nation Media Group, but journalists in general, all right? Let's say we move on to Business Daily, and this is what we have on Business Daily. Shilling breaches $142 as new CBK boss takes charge. The currency shedding 13.5% value to hit historic low. Traders link slide to demand-supply mismatch. Well, the Kenyan shilling has breached the 140-unit mark trading against the US dollar, defying state interventions to stop its downward spiral, and the first major test for the new Central Bank of Kenya boss, Dr. Kamau Thuge. And also, from Kibaki-era deal-making machine into receivership battle, the story of Trans-Century. That's a story there by Kefa Mwiduri. You can be able to get it inside the Business Daily. Let's see just very quickly as well what we have here on the ticker of the Business Daily, where government didn't convert 537 billion pending bills into bond. And this is because the government has shelved a plan to convert pending bills into bond, following concerns that will significantly increase the pile of debt at a time the country's position has been classified as being at high risk of debt distress. Also, Kenya Airways resuming daily New York flights. The Kenya Airways resuming direct daily flights to New York as it seeks to cash out on the summer season, expected to push up demand for air travel. And also, state has ordered a lifestyle audit for NHIF staff in graft crackdown. The state will conduct a lifestyle audit on all the National Health Insurance employees from this month to in a crackdown on fraud that has cost the public insurer billions of shillings in losses over the years. And also, very quickly, Taifa Leo. This is what we have on Taifa Leo. Raia roho mkononi, kwa maana kuna maamuzi macho yote kwa wabunge wanapopiga kura kuunga au kupinga mswada ambao umeibua hisia mseto nchini kote. It's all about the finance bill, and all eyes which will be on the finance bill 2023, which happens to go for its third reading for the House committee today in the afternoon. It says ingawa mrengo wa serikali unatarajiwa kuibuka mshindi, mswada wa fedha haujapokelewa kwa wema. So what are some of the issues within this finance bill that continues to remain contentious? We'll be having that discussion in just a moment, and it is definitely captured on all the other papers that I have here. Like the Standard, this is what it does talk about, the Standard. Azimio planning changes to Ruto tax bill, just a quick front page there. It's going to be a debate because the opposition apparently has planned a two-pronged approach to the finance bill where they're pushing for 8 amendments. They hope will get support even from Kenya Kwanza legislators. If that fails, the coalition will move to court to block the implementation of the new taxation measures. And also on the Star, if I can get it right now and see what else is captured on the Star. It's going to be a big clash as well as MPs take final vote on tax law. Azimio troops to line up a raft of amendments to cripple Ruto's revenue streams. Kenya and EU agree on duty and quota-free export conditions. We saw that happening yesterday at State House, okay? And time, we'll be taking a very short break here on AM Live in a moment before we get into a conversation.